You'd always known you were different, not because you say it, but because you experienced it. Something within you was never pulled to the illusions, never misled by the meaningless noise, never content with dead-end shortcuts, while others ran after fleeting highs and false successes. You stayed steadfast, knowing deep down that what was destined for you could not be taken, hurried, or falsified. They scoffed at your patience. They insulted your discipline. Others labeled you small-minded, as others hurried for dazzling lights and quick money. They believed they had discovered the secret, the shortcut, the method to avoid the conflict. But now, when the dust settles, the truth is revealed. Look around. Where are they currently? Those who boast the loudest have gone mute. Those who said they were ahead are now looking for a route back. And you? You are still here, standing as strong as ever, stepping into what they previously disregarded since you were never destined to follow their path. You were set aside. You were designed for something better. They were distracted by illusions. You were prepared for something substantial. And now, when the doors open, the chance is poor, and all they pursued crumbles in front of their eyes, one fact becomes clear. You were always the chosen one. They attempted to disconnect you from your destiny. They attempted to make you rethink your route. I tried to persuade you that you were traveling too slowly. You were missing out. But they never realized what was genuinely yours. Cannot be taken, cannot be imitated, cannot be touched by people who did not have access in the first place. This is your moment. Your promotion is not on its way. It is already occurring. And those who left you behind, they can now only watch. Some people will always choose the illusion over reality, lured to the sparkling surface rather than the solid foundation under their feet. The moment the hallucination spoke their name, they abandoned reason and fled. You could see the change in the way they pursued fake successes, the way they clutched to a dream so firmly that they imagined it was theirs. They paraded around other people's lives, borrowed success to stage a show, and rehearsed the script for riches they were yet to earn. They framed the image well. Each post, statement, and choreographed occasion was intended to persuade the public and themselves that they had outrun the reality. They preached wealth as if it followed them, yet their shadows concealed truths they refused to reveal. They boasted of boundless money, facile growth, and golden chances. However, their basis was as hollow as the platitudes they recited. They persuaded themselves that they had exceeded you, disregarding prudence, ignoring wisdom, and seeing your patience as a weakness rather than the road on which they no longer want to create anything substantial. They merely desired the image of having everything. And once they believed themselves they had been selected, there was no going back. So they turned away. They swapped content for show, perseverance for a speedy getaway, and mistaken noise for genuine motion. They mocked the plodding ascent, not realizing that their dash would go to nothing. They mistaken visibility for permanency, mistaken access for ownership, mistook speed for progress. But what they abandoned was larger than they realized, because what they rushed toward had never been designed to endure. The foundation that they rejected was where actual wealth was being built. Brick by brick, they refused to see. They mistaken modest successes, secret planning, and favor for insignificance. They never understood the distinction between what can be borrowed and what is actually possessed. When the illusion collapsed, reality hit. The promises evaporated. The mentors disappeared. The empire they swore by crumbled beneath its own weight. They glanced back, looking for solidity, something genuine. And at that point, they saw you still pushing ahead, still flourishing. They are still becoming involved in things they used to disdain. But their awareness was too late. They had created their universe on changing terrain. They now had to confront what remained. They had congregated in rooms full of believers, mesmerized by the voice of the person selling the dream. The picture was portrayed in broad strokes: easy riches and endless possibility. A reality saved only for those who dare to view it. They saw it. They grabbed upon the offer, certain that entrance was just a modest fee away. They were not expected to produce, strive, or construct. They were just urged to believe. And they did, because it was simpler than the reality. They invested their funds in promises laced with exclusivity, thinking they were obtaining a unique chance. From a distance, you know the signs: prepared exuberance, brittle confidence, and written claims of overnight change. The others who were already inside kept up the charade, nodding and clapping in time, unwilling to confess they had been duped. The room was filled with ambition. However, the only real benefit went to those who spun the fantasy, not those who bought into it. Doubt was not tolerated in their universe. They dismissed every warning as pessimism, as small-minded thinking. They believed themselves that they had broken past a barrier. Standing among the prominent, on the verge of easy success, their leader, a person shrouded in an illusion of status, constantly clothed in costly branding, always posing in someone else's luxury, moved with the confidence of a genius. However, underneath the gleaming facade was nothing but a manufactured illusion. A riches created on the dreams of people seeking an easier path ahead. If your heart is overflowing with God's blessings, let that love radiate. Click the super thank you button and donate $1 or more to sow seeds of faith that will touch countless lives. Your giving exemplifies His richness. Be a channel for His grace, and watch His kingdom grow through you. Every picture, testimonial, and big action was meticulously crafted to entice the next generation of believers. They devoured it completely. They congregated in darkly lit rooms where enthusiasm was generated, artificial lighting and soaring music obscured reality. They took photographs in rented automobiles and spoke as if their money was already solid. They repeated the jargon of the movement. Bold affirmations, prepared mantras, bogus claims of financial success, while their own accounts told a different picture. They thought they'd surpassed you. Your discipline appeared out of date. Your knowledge is irrelevant. Your approach is overly cautious. They scoffed at patience, dismissed strategy, and brushed aside any thought of battle in their eyes. The future belonged to those who moved quickly and boasted loudly. However, the mirage couldn't hold. The leader disappeared. The bogus promises crumbled, and the exclusive circle devolved into a cycle of shattered believers attempting to recruit replacements. And then, when the reality dawned on them, they were unable to deny it any longer. They had been tricked. They had abandoned a long-lasting base in favor of a dream that vanished before their eyes. They went away from safety, knowledge, and the route that might have led to something substantial. And now, standing in the ruins of their decisions, they finally glanced back. They had access to something real that would have lasted. But it had not been quick enough, had not been loud enough. They had not been promised the quick fulfillment they sought. They were never willing to shape their own future. They merely wanted to jump to the last scene. Restlessness seized hold, making each sluggish stride forward seem like a failure. The allure of rapid success drew them in, and their enthusiasm rose as they heard accounts of meteoric leaps and riches gained overnight. Their remarks became crisper, infused with a calm confidence that they had discovered a secret way without speaking a word. They withdrew themselves, their patient base shrank, and their interest decreased. The esteem for perseverance dwindled. The steady route they had traveled with you suddenly seems uninteresting and out of date. They stopped listening to advice and saw discipline as unneeded, mistaking fast movement for actual advancement. And when the moment arrived, they leapt without hesitation. They invested all they had in the prospect of something better. They abandoned the route they had trusted, believing that slow meant stagnant, and stability meant settling. There was no reasoning with them. There was no warning they would have heeded. You did not stand in their way. You give them a choice. Knowing that time would dispel the illusion they had based their expectations on. Because what is founded on truth will never be replaced by something that lives on falsehood. For a time, they nailed the role. The surface glowed with success. Lavish vacations, panoramic vistas, or beautifully crafted glances of a world they desperately wanted to believe in. They believed themselves that they had arrived. But reality does not bend for delusions. The weight of what was missing could only be overlooked for so long. Because the facade is continuously weakening, the act constantly falters, and the illusion inevitably breaks. And when it happened, they found themselves robbed of all they had invested in an illusion. While they were pursuing a dream, you were securing something solid while others risked on flimsy guarantees. You planted roots that could resist storms. And now, as they sift through the debris, they realize what they ignored. They stand outside, gazing in at what you still have, what you're constructing, and what they'll never be able to regain. Initially, they refused to accept the fissures. The riches was expected to come in. The gamble was expected to pay off. Easy gains were expected to continue. However, all they discovered were endless reasons and delays disguised as small difficulties. Warning signs are camouflaged as temporary impediments. You saw it unraveling long before they did. You watched as the edges frayed, but they clung to the delusion, certain that if they hung on long enough, the fiction would become reality. They filled the stillness with hollow statements, convincing themselves that success was just around the corner. It's all coming together, they said, groping for optimism. But the days turned into weeks, then months, and nothing changed. The guiding voice that used to direct their every action faded away. Meetings that were previously brimming with excitement become hazy, sporadic check-ins. The payouts, which had previously been guaranteed with certainty, were postponed indefinitely until the murmurs about them ended totally. The grand empire they had so enthusiastically invested in was not just collapsing. It had never really existed. You're here for a purpose. If you feel called, answer it. Click. Join to get access to rare information, in-depth insights, and a strong community. This is not just a membership. It is an awakening. Step into your divine mission. Join the chosen. They sought consolation by browsing through selected photos of wealth and plenty, trying to find confirmation that everything was still intact. However, something was different now. The remarks seemed rehearsed. The glosses faded. The confidence seemed strained. The person they previously admired still flaunted extravagance. But it was quieter and more deliberate. Their spotlight had moved. New faces had appeared in the meticulously arranged photographs. Fresh names were being announced, and enthusiastic recruits carried the illusion on. They had been abandoned, left to pick up the pieces of a dream that had vanished without them, leaving only remorse and the burden of their losses. They'd always been pulled to what? Glittered, mistaking sounds for impact, mistaking speed for direction. They believed that success was determined by who could appear the part and sustain the illusion for the greatest period of time. But, while others rushed for brief recognition, you stood firm. You've never pursued, never wavered, never sought affirmation from the audience, because you understood something that others couldn't. What is genuinely intended cannot be stolen, cannot be forced or lost. The foundation you laid was more than simply financial. It was unshakable, something far more precious. They mistaken status symbols for actual affluence. They felt that money could be found on the surface. Excessive indulgences, pricey labels, and excessive displays. However, what was being planned for you was beyond their understanding. What you walked into was not limited by trends, was not influenced by manufactured hype, and was not reliant on the acceptance of others. It was something that could never be manufactured, never be purchased, and never degrade with time. And, while others were spent fighting to cling on to a delusion, your path unfolded naturally. The doors opened without force. Opportunities lined up without manipulation. What they battled so hard for was already inscribed into your path. Not because you sought shortcuts or because you played a part, but because you moved with intention. The areas they could never reach greeted you without hesitation. You already had what they had been after for so long. Not because you requested it, but because it was always intended for you. This is not guesswork. This is not a gamble. This isn't a coincidence. This is reality, unfolding in its own time. And if you've been walking in harmony, you've already felt it. It starts very gradually, like a change in the atmosphere. You're no longer trying to stand out, to be heard, to be acknowledged. Instead, something changes. The proper eyes start to notice you. The appropriate opportunities arise. The proper talks start easily. You no longer need to struggle for access or force connections, because what is intended for you will draw towards you. No more pursuing, proving, or bending to fit into areas that were never designed to accommodate you. And just when it seems that a shortage of resources is unavoidable, something unexpected occurs. Provision does not emerge from the expected sources or via the tactics they advised you to use. not via the weary quest of temporary security. It finds you in ways that are beyond rationality, slipping into your hands exactly when you needed the support, chances, and means to go on, without surrendering your identity, without compromising your peace, without reducing your expectations. Ordinary rules cannot explain what is happening. Expenses were fulfilled. Doors swung open. The proper route opens up in front of you, while others trade their ideals for short-term gains. What is intended for you comes completely intact. The globe continues to chase, claw, and scramble for the next big break. However, the fact is different. Real success does not need desperation. It demands patience. And when the appropriate thing appears, it does not need you to shrink. It does not need you to transform yourself into something weird. It seamlessly aligns with who you were always intended to be. No weapon made against you will flourish, and every mouth that rises against you in judgment, you will condemn. The name is Isaiah. They met in secret, believing that their voices might change what had already been written. They plotted in the darkness, thinking they could obscure a light beyond their control. They mentioned your name with suspicion, jealousy, and the silent desire that you would never ascend. But they didn't grasp this. When God mocks you, no one can undo you. There is a hedge around you, an unseen fortification, stronger than their plans, greater than their tricks. They believed they could postpone what was intended for you, reroute the blessings, and shut the doorways. But they didn't understand your table was already set. The feast was not prepared in their courts. It was not arranged by their hands. It was not subject to their approval. God did not need their consent to raise you. So, one by one, the strategies they devised begin to unravel. The words they murmured rendered worthless the control that had before gone through their fingers like sand. The mechanisms they designed to keep you out crumble under their own weight. Because something is divinely guarded and cannot be disturbed. They wake up one morning and notice something has changed. The techniques that formerly provided them an edge are now ineffective. They no longer have the same power over you. The folks who formerly supported them are now maintaining their distance. They're not sure why, but they can sense it. The shift favor has shifted. They strive to find a way back, situate themselves, and restore their former influence over your story. But it is too late. The season has changed. Their previous level of access has been removed. And while they look for the power they previously had, they understand that the basis on which they built their confidence was never stable, since everything not anchored in truth would always disintegrate. Meanwhile, you remain steadfast, unshaken, and unmoved. You do not have to compete for position. You don't need to demand respect. You don't need to seek reasons, since God is your defender, and His protection is unquestionable. What they felt was gone had just been moved. What they thought was permanent has been torn away. What they thought they had control over was never really in their hands. And you simply continue walking, covered, shielded, elevated, unstoppable. Because when God established anything, no man, system, or opponent can get in the way. And that's why they watch now, perplexed and uneasy, unable to explain why nothing they do works anymore. But you already know, because it wasn't about them. It was never in their possession, and it was never within their control. And the illusion they once worshipped, it dissipates like mist before daybreak. The person they followed, the self-proclaimed expert and creator of fake success, has vanished into obscurity. No more elaborate shows. There are no more leased lives. No more empty promises of limitless riches. The timeline, which previously flooded with performances, is now empty. The veneer crumbles, the following disperse, and the fantasy they held on to is revealed for what it really was. An illusion never intended to remain. And for the first time, reality confronts them. They refresh their inboxes, check the group conversations, scan the unread messages, looking for reassurance, looking for a way out. They skim through the exchanges, trying to uncover evidence that it's all a mistake. But the stillness lasts longer. The messages remain unanswered. Promises of reimbursements disappear. The same voices who applauded before swore by the vision. Now express your displeasure. Now reveal the illusion, and reality will collapse. They were utilized, discarded. They were left with the ruins of a dream that was never theirs in the first place. They recall the warnings. They derided the council. They shrugged aside the patience they had discarded. They abandoned something genuine, something substantial, in order to pursue an illusion that was already dissolving. And now what remains? They rushed toward an empire that never was. Beyond carefully manufactured appearances, the leader they admired. Nowhere to be found. They were promised fortune, a mirage. And who is still standing? The one they questioned. The person they looked down on. The person they left behind. They believed they were going into something larger. But they were heading right into disaster.